So when people decide that they are going to start exercising, people typically choose to do cardio over weightlifting. And why is that? More often than not, it's because cardio is easy to do. Like most people know how to do cardio. Like if you want something just simple and easy, maybe not easy, but simple, you can just go outside and run a mile, run around the block, something like that. Whereas with weightlifting, most people don't know how to do weightlifting, and that's why they don't often default to weightlifting when they are going from inactivity, no exercise to exercise. And the reason why is weightlifting is more complex. Like you have to know like what workout program to do, what exercises to do. You have to learn proper form, and like how many reps and sets to do, how often to work out per week, all that stuff. And so it's totally understandable why most people default to cardio. Um, Now it is somewhat rising in popularity, or it's becoming a little bit more common knowledge that weightlifting gives you better results than cardio will. But it's not prevalent to the masses. So there's still a lot of people who choose cardio over weightlifting. But I'm going to be covering why that is the wrong choice if you are looking to become leaner, and toner, and all of that stuff. So, one big reason why people choose cardio, other than it being really easy and people knowing how to do it, is they think that it burns more calories, which during the activity, yes, cardio does burn more calories during the activity, but weightlifting burns more calories long term. So during the activity of weightlifting, you burn calories, and after the activity of weightlifting, you burn more calories after the fact. So at the end of the day, you actually end up burning more calories weightlifting than you do cardio. And it also changes your physique in a different way. And we're going to be covering how all that happens. So, when we're talking about cardio versus weightlifting, they both use a particular energy source. Cardio's main energy source is fat. Not necessarily body fat, adipose tissue. It does use a lot of like dietary fat as fuel, to give you the energy to do the activity. And in some cases, yes, it does burn body fat while you are doing the activity. But in saying that, that's a problem. That does not mean because cardio burns fat that you're going to get leaner. Yes, if you're coming from doing absolutely nothing to doing some activity, yeah, you likely will lose some fat, but you're not going to get the toned look that you're looking for. You're going to turn into skinny fat, basically. That's what happens to everybody who prioritizes cardio over any form of resistance training. Like, look at, even if you just compare a marathon runner to a sprinter, marathon runners, long distance runners look skinny fat. I'm going to show you guys an example real quick. Marathon runners. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys so y'all can follow along. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to do this little thing for some reason. I'm not a robot. I promise you guys. Oh my goodness, come on. Cars. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so marathon runners. We're not going to go for the stock images. We're going to go for like average looking marathon runners. Okay, so, oh man, that's really skinny. That's like really, really skinny. Actually, let me do this. Marathon runners versus sprinters. Okay, so here's a good example of a few good examples. So here's a sprinter. Look at how much muscle mass that she has. She's still lean, doesn't have much fat at all, but she's very toned and muscular looking in a feminine way. Whereas this girl over here, she's not skinny fat, but she is very skinny. So this isn't a good example of skinny fat. This would be a pretty good example of skinny fat. So skinny fat here, muscular here. He's a sprinter. A little bit here, skinny fat, and sprinter. But let me give you guys a better example. Skinny fat of what most people who do cardio end up looking like, who prioritize cardio over weightlifting. So this would be a good example. This is skinny fat, like he's thin, but you know, he has more fat than muscle. This guy too. I guess I probably should have prepared this for you guys so I could give y'all better examples, but I'm sure you guys get the point. Now, so let's go back to the topic. So cardio's main energy source is fat. But the problem with that, and that's a very big problem, is just because it uses fat as its fuel doesn't mean that it's going to make you leaner long term or change your physique. And the reason why is because it basically tells your body, hey, fat is our main energy source that we use for this activity. So it tells your body, hey, we need to store more fat since we do this activity so often. So when you prioritize cardio, it basically tells your body to prioritize fat storage because that is your main fuel source. Whereas with weightlifting, actually, I'll get into that in a second. So the other problem with cardio is it prioritizes your type 1 muscle fibers. So in basic terms, you have two muscle fiber types. Technically have three, but for simplicity's sake, you have two main muscle types. Type 1, it's blurry, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 are your slow twitch muscle fibers. And they have a great ability for long-term endurance. So that means they are great for long distance cardio, long distance steady state cardio, something that you can maintain for a long time, like casual jogging, jumping jacks. Those would be examples of long steady state cardio. But the problem with them, one reason why they're really good for steady state cardio is because they have a recycling ability, which means that as some of your type 1 muscle fibers are working, the other type 1 muscle fibers are resting. So type 1 working, type 1 resting, working, resting, etc. So that's what makes them so great for endurance training. But the problem with basically prioritizing your type 1 muscle fibers over your type 2 muscle fibers, which are targeted predominantly through resistance training, is if you're working your type 1 muscle fibers like you are with chronic long-term cardio, it tells your body that, hey, like we really use our type 1 muscle fibers more than our type 2 muscle fibers. So let's make our type 2 muscle fibers smaller and let's prioritize our type 1 muscle fibers. So the problem with that is when your body is not prioritizing your type 2 muscle fibers, which by the way have the greatest muscle growth potential. So basically it tells your body to make your muscle smaller and like kind of waste away for cardio to make you more efficient at cardio, so you're not having to carry all of this weight around. And so yeah, it additionally lends to that skinny fat look. You end up losing muscle mass, muscle size, And yeah, you might burn calories and lose fat that way, but you're just going to get that skinny fat look. You're not going to get tones, and you're not going to be able to shape your body with cardio. You cannot shape your body with cardio, but you can with weightlifting. So let's see. Oh, and so another thing with cardio is your body has a very strong desire to preserve itself. It does not want to waste away. So that means even though you might burn a lot of calories when you first start doing cardio, over time your body will become more efficient at that cardio, which means that your body will naturally burn less calories even though you're doing the same amount of cardio. So what that means is if you want to keep losing weight doing cardio, as you become more efficient at cardio, you eventually have to keep doing more and more cardio to burn the same amount of calories. So that means you have to spend more time doing cardio just to get the same rate of fat loss as you were at first. So that's a problem there as well. So let's contrast that to weightlifting. Weightlifting's main energy source is glucose, glycogen. It's depending on how heavy you're doing, it's glycogen, which is a carbohydrate, or ATP and creatine. And all of those, so ATP and creatine are responsible for power. So when I say power, think of like a 1 rep max on squats. So say you can squat 500 pounds for 1 rep. The main energy source is ATP and creatine. If you're doing a little bit like moderate weight, it uses more glucose. So where is glucose stored? It's stored in the muscles, and it's a carbohydrate. So what that means is when you prioritize weightlifting, it tells your body, hey, we do weightlifting often. We need this, which means we need this energy source on hand all the time. So that tells your body to store more glycogen. And glycogen is stored in your muscle bellies and in your liver. So it's really good for your liver. And when glycogen is stored in your muscles, it makes your muscles look fuller. So that in and of itself makes your muscles look bigger because you're prioritizing glycogen, because that's your main fuel source. And then it also makes you look better overall, because if you're weightlifting properly, you should be becoming stronger and you should be building muscle. And if you know how to weightlift, you know how to essentially shape your body, like add muscle where you're wanting to build up some areas, and maybe not work out some other areas as much because you don't want them as big. So you can actually shape your body with weightlifting. And it's really good at, if you have more muscle, you're going to burn more fat because your body doesn't need it as much. And then on the topic of the muscle fiber types, so I briefly touched on this, but let's go into a little bit more detail. So if you're weightlifting properly, you can target both your type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers. So you can make both of those fiber types bigger. So contrast that to cardio that only emphasizes the type 1 muscle fibers, which do not have a very great potential for muscle size. If you're doing weightlifting, you can get both of those bigger. Still, type 1 muscle fibers don't have as great of a potential for muscle size, but type 2 muscle fibers really do have a great potential for muscle size. So real quick, how do you target both in weightlifting? So remember how type 1 muscle fibers are responsible for endurance training. So they are slow twitch. So they're good for lighter weights. I'm not saying you should do light weights, but here's how you can target both at the same time. So if you choose a moderate load, something that's not light, but something that's not too heavy. So if you choose a moderate load and you slow down how you're performing your reps, you can first target your type 1 muscle fibers. So for example, let's say you're doing bicep curls, and let's say you choose a weight, a moderate weight, where you can only get maybe like 8 reps. If you slow it down, so like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and then 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, that's a 3-second positive and a 3-second negative. So because you're slowing it down in the beginning of that set, you will primarily target your type 1 muscle fibers because, again, they're slow twitch and you're not fatigued yet. And if you keep constant tension on the muscles, meaning you're not resting at the bottom here, and you're not resting at the top where the weight is resting on the joint. So if you're keeping constant tension on the muscle, you will negate the type 1 muscle fiber's ability to recycle itself. So that means you will fatigue the type 1 muscle fibers faster. And that's what we want to stimulate muscle strength and growth. And then once the type 1 muscle fibers are fully fatigued, your type 2 muscle fibers will kick in and will start to take on the rest of the load. And that's typically the last 4 to 5 reps of a set if you chose a weight that you reach failure by, that end range. So your type 2 muscle fibers will kick in and they will take responsibility for the load. And if you train until failure, like you literally cannot lift it up anymore, no matter how hard you're pulling in this scenario, then you have fully fatigued your type 2 muscle fibers. So that's how you can target both your type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers for the best muscle strength and growth. Okay, so now on the topic of cardiovascular health, obviously a lot of people will do cardio for cardiovascular reasons to improve their endurance and how healthy their heart is. But you can do that with weightlifting too. So in essence, you don't have to do cardio at all to lose fat and, get the physique that you're wanting and have cardio benefits. You can get all of that and even better with weightlifting. So, and how do you do that with weightlifting? Well, one, if you're training hard and heavy, which is the way that I teach in my program, Physique by Strength, you automatically will be working out your heart. If you're training to failure, your heartbeat is going to be up and high. And then if, let's say you're only resting maybe a minute or two between exercises, or you just have transitional rest, transitional rest is just the amount of time that it takes to walk from one exercise to the next exercise and set that up. That's transitional rest, which could be maybe 20 seconds. That'll keep your heart rate elevated. And then, if you train to failure, like I teach, then you are simultaneously fully fatiguing your muscle fibers, which is the driving force between mechanical tension is the driving force behind muscle strength and growth. And then, if you're training to failure and you're not resting very long between your sets, you are targeting your cardiovascular system. Your heart rate is going to be high and you're going to be working it really well. So you don't have to do cardio to get lean, get strong, get muscular, have great heart health or endurance. You can get all of that through weightlifting. So I don't do cardio at all, and I don't recommend cardio at all to any of my clients. Unless you are wanting to compete in a marathon or compete in any cardiovascular sport, there's no reason to do cardio at all. Um, so the other thing with weightlifting is because you're building muscle, you can actually end up having a faster metabolism, which means that you can eat more calories. So even if you're the same weight. So as most people know by now, it's pretty common knowledge that muscle, the same weight of muscle compared to the same weight of fat, the muscle is smaller. It takes up less space. Even though they weigh the same, the muscle is smaller because it takes up less space because it is more dense. Fat tissue is more has more volume to it. So even if you're the same weight, like compare me, so I am 140 pounds. I have quite a bit of muscle mass. You can compare me to another 140-pound woman who say she's the same height as me. She's 5'3", only does cardio, no weightlifting at all. She is going to look bigger than me because she has more fat tissue than I do. On the topic of calories, even though we weigh the same, exactly the same, we're the same age, I will have a faster metabolism than her because I have more muscle mass, which means I can eat more food and maintain my weight than she can. So that's another benefit for weightlifting over cardio. Now, I totally understand if if say like you're completely new to fitness, you don't know how to do weightlifting. You know, my first and foremost recommendation for you would be to hire a coach because you will save time. If you're not going to hire a coach, then you have to do all of that research yourself and all of that trial and error yourself. And that you can end up wasting so much time, like years running in circles. And that's how I started my fitness journey, is I thought I could do it myself. And I really did end up wasting years trying to figure it out myself. But if let's say you don't have the patience for that, or you can't afford a coach right now, then if you're wanting to transform your physique, I still wouldn't recommend cardio per se. And if say like it's out of the picture that you can't figure out or you don't have the time to figure out how to do like body weight exercises, things like that, I would recommend walking over cardio if you're wanting to get leaner. Now, obviously, you got to eat healthy and eat clean and eat less food, slightly less food. You don't want to crash diet or anything like that. You don't want to diet too severely because you'll just wreck your metabolism if you do that. So if you're eating healthy and clean, I would recommend walking over cardio. And the reason why, again, it's multiple reasons. So walking does not interfere with your recoverability. So going back to weightlifting, if you're weightlifting and you add cardio on top of weightlifting, you can kind of kick yourself in the butt and hinder your recoverability from weightlifting. But walking does not do that. Walking can actually promote faster recovery because it helps to move the lactic acid. It can help to relieve stress. If you're walking outside, you get the vitamin D. And it also resyncs your circadian rhythm, which resyncs all of your hormones. There's so many health benefits for walking, especially in sunlight. Yeah, when it comes to walking, it's not going to hinder your recoverability. You will burn quite a bit of calories with walking, but without like telling your body to store fat as its main fuel source. And walking won't catabolize your muscles. It won't tell your body that hey, we need to become lighter, and we don't use the type 2 muscle fibers, so we need to make them smaller and prioritize the type 1. Remember how I said that cardio does that? Walking won't do that. So even with walking, you will get a better physique with walking and a healthy diet than just plain old cardio. Plain old cardio will just give you that skinny fat look and yeah, make your muscles smaller. So that pretty much covers it. Let me check Facebook real quick. See if you guys have any questions. Erin says she loves this, or he loves this, sorry. Awesome. I'm so glad that you love it. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. If y'all have any topics y'all want me to teach, just post in the group. I do live trainings every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Central. So all you have to do is ask. I'm here to help you guys. Jacob Stone says, what if you enjoy cardio like I enjoy fight training? Yeah, there's benefit to something if you really enjoy it. Yeah, if you really enjoy it, well, so you got to assess it from like, what's your main priority? Like, is your main priority to have fun? Like, so let's say, Jacob, I know you love Krav Maga. So, like if it's your main priority to like have fun, or like if it's a stress relief, then I would say, yeah, don't remove it. Like, keep it in your life. But at the same time, like if you need to lose weight and you need to like change your health and you're wanting to like reshape your body, you're going to have to prioritize some form of resistance training. So that doesn't mean that you have to give up your cardio. It just means, so a lot of you guys know my system works off of you only have to lift 2 to 3 times a week to get the best muscle and strength gains. And that's a very unique program. Most coaches have you train 4, 5, 6 times a week. So that means that you can have more time for other things. So in this case, like if you love a form of cardio, but you still want to change your physique and health, then lifting 2 to 3 times a week, like in my program, is all you need. Make that a priority. And I will say that in that scenario, you're going to have that form of cardio take a second place. It's not to say that you have to remove it, unless you have like tons of time and energy. But even still, depending on how intense the cardio it is, it can greatly interfere with your performance in the gym. And if your performance in the gym is diminished, it's going to diminish your ability to become stronger and to build a muscle mass. So it depends on the intensity. Jacob, I'm not sure how intense the cardio is in Krav Maga. If you want to comment on that real quick, I can cover that from there. But yeah, so back in 2019, when I was doing a wrestling film, I had to do 4 months of wrestling training. And so I basically had to wrestle for 3 hours a night, 3 or 4 days a week. I think it was 4. No, it was 3 days a week. So I had to wrestle for 3 hours, 3 days a week. And that's a lot of cardio. It's not constant, and you do have like periods of breaks. So it's a little bit like high intensity interval training, which is where you have like short bouts of really high cardio, and then you have like rest periods between. So it's kind of like that. But it was for 3 hours. So, and during that time, I really did see like plateau in my strength and muscle gains. But during the time, that had to be my priority, because I had to train that for a movie that I was acting in. But once I stopped training that, or at least as much, then my strength gains and my muscle gains started to come back up again. So yeah, it depends on your priorities, but in the context of like, if you're wanting to change and alter your physique, You're going to get the best gains prioritizing weightlifting over your cardio. And you're also going to have to learn like like how much can you recover from? Everybody's different in this regard. It also depends on how clean your diet is, how good your sleep is. But if you're struggling recovering from activity, then that means you need to scale something back. And if you're doing cardio on top of weightlifting, I would say it's the cardio that has to be scaled back if you're having recovery issues and if your main priority is to build muscle and strength, reshape your body, and lose fat. Jacob says it's like short 2 to 3 minute bursts. Okay, so a bit of hit with resting periods of instruction. 1 to 3 minutes. Okay, so that seems pretty moderate intensity. Yeah, so Jacob, I would say, so you're lifting 3 times a week right now. I would say in that scenario, from what I understand from what you're saying, you could probably get by with 2, maybe 3 Krav Maga sessions if you're recovering well and if your schedule permits you to do something like that and you can be consistent with all of that, because consistency is the biggest thing in terms of or I should say sustainability is the biggest factor for overall success. If you can sustain something and it's what you're doing is taking steps towards your goal, you will reach your goal because it's sustainable for you. But if it's too much for you, too overwhelming for you, and you can't be consistent with whatever routine you're doing, then you're not going to reach your goal. So if you can sustain what you're wanting to do and it's not interfering with your recoverability in the gym, resistance training, then I'd say it's perfectly fine. Okay. You're welcome. Yeah. So Jacob says he loves his Krav community. Yeah, I figured it was probably one of the reasons why is because of why you love it so much is because of the community aspect of it, which I totally understand. You're more of an extrovert than I am, so I can see why that'd be super important for you. I'm an extrovert too. Well, okay, so I'm technically an ambivert. Like so an ambivert is a mix of introverted and extroverted, but I lean more towards introvertedness. So most of the time I would say I'm more introverted. Not to say that I'm shy or insecure. I think that's a false impression of introvertedness. More so like I like being alone a lot of the time. Not all the time. Like sometimes like I want to be in groups and like hang out with a group of friends or I'm an actor too, so like obviously like I like to perform for people. So yeah, it depends on what mood I'm in. But yeah, I can see how that'd be super important to you, Jacob. So Jacob says, I think I have become more of an introvert due to the pandemic, but definitely still an extrovert. Yeah, that's understandable. Well, cool. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about this topic, just let me know. Thank you guys for watching live, and I will see y'all next week. And happy Valentine's Day. Bye.